Hi everyone, welcome back to ITOM Batch 5, Day 3. Very good morning. I hope you are doing well.
Yes, Ajay, how about you, sir?
Good to hear. I'm also doing good. Thank you. Okay, so before proceeding to the next topic for today, I just want to understand, is there any questions, whatever we have covered till now in last 2 days, related to data centers, related to the ITOM packages and capabilities from anyone? Is there any question or shall we move to the next topic now?
I think we can start.
Okay. So let me quickly share my screen and let me know once it's visible to you guys.
You can see
Okay,
Ajay.
right. So yesterday, let me again refresh a little bit. So yesterday we talked about data centers and DR and what is the purpose of the data centers and the DR, how we have to be proceed for the discovery side, what precautions we have to be take while we are starting for the discovery for the DC as well as the DR. I think someone joined. Let me approve it. No. So that's the basic things, right? We have discussed on those one. That's the basic things which we have discussed, right? Now let's talk about little bit the uh, data or basically the device which is available in a data centers, right? Basically how that's are working, how basically that's aligned, right? So let me move to this particular slide. Yeah, this one. So this is a simple example of virtual machines, right? I hope you already heard about the virtual machine concepts in the infrastructure side, right? So let me give you that which I know, or there are a couple of others providers which providing the virtual machine solutions. But the first is VMware. So VMware provide the solutions on your hardware. You can create the virtual machines, right? The second is Microsoft, which we called Hyper-V, that is also providing, and the third is Nutanix, right? So these are the three OEMs or the providers providing the solutions for the virtual machines. Now you are able to see on the screen basically if I give an example, simple example, basically what virtual machine it is, right? Now let me give an example of your cupboard, right? So you purchase a big cupboard for your room. Inside that, what you did, you put some, slides, or you put some, space for specific things, right? Okay, here I'm going to put my, blazers and all. Here I'm going to put my clothes. Here I'm going to put my shoes. Here I'm going to put my those particular things, right? So you purchase a big cover, but inside that you put it some slides to do that, right? Let me see, someone is in. Let me approve those and then we'll get started. Cancel. Okay, so that's the basically things. The same thing virtual machines do. What organizations do, they will purchase a big hardware or with extra configurations hardware where hard disk will be 1 terabyte, or I can say the CPU will be 100 GB, 100 core CPUs, and top of it the RAM is again 100 GBs RAM, right? So simple example I'm just giving here. So once we purchase this particular hardware, a big physical hardware, and top of it running a simple one applications, what we do, we install the virtualization capabilities or virtualization softwares which I mentioned provided by the different OEMs. Whatever the company choose, they will put it, right? So it just like a software, right? So once you install the softwares, automatically that particular software or that solutions which is provided by the OEM, that will create some machines virtual machines top of it, right? So automatically, as I mentioned, 1 TB hard disk, 100 GB of RAMs, 100 cores of the CPU will be divided in, if you want to create 10, automatically will be divided in, with same type of configurations or the same type of allocations to each virtual machines, right? So it automatically divide 10 GB RAM, 10 GB or 10 core CPU or 100 GB hard disk to one virtual machine, and the same for the other virtual machines, right? That's how we are creating virtual machines. And on top of it, once the virtual machine is created, on top of it, we are installing our OS operating system. On top of it, we are installing our application. On top of it, we are installing our database or whatever purpose we want to use those particular virtual machines, right? So in this particular diagram, if you are able to see here, let me go down here. I've just put it Hyper-V example as well, right? So, okay, let's see. So this is a Hyper-V host server, right? Hyper-V host server, basically a physical server on which you have installed the Hyper-V, which is provided by Microsoft, right? On top of it, once you Hyper-V physical host server is, installed, or the application is installed, Microsoft Hyper-V will be created. Like that will act as a ESX servers, right? And on top of it, the virtual machines will be there, right? So virtual machines will be created, and inside the virtual machines, as I mentioned, you can install OS and then you can install your application, right? Someone again trying to join. Okay. So that's the things basically, right? The same way for if you see here, it's just little uh, small picture here. I hope you are able to see that, but that's the same thing will happening here, right? So you have a physical stack there that virtual networks will be created, virtual storage will be created, and top of it, there are couple of other capabilities will be providing by the virtualization softwares, right? So if just an example, if I'm giving a vMotion, right? If you see here, it's a vMotion. vMotion is doing, you created 10 virtual machines under uh, top of it, one physical server, right? And that comes under one ESX servers, right? So once anything happen on that particular virtual machine due to any XYZ regions, automatically you can configure that to be transferred to another ESX servers or another physical machine, right? So your application will be up, and meanwhile you can check what the issues and you can fix it, right? So the disruptions will not be happening, right? That's the vMotion, just an example here, right? So that's the vMotion capabilities is there provided by the virtual machines, virtual virtualization softwares basically, right? So that's the three things will available in the market, right? Now I'm just quickly giving you an example here. See, on the discovery prospectus, I'm just giving an example here. You have I can say that's an IP example, right? So one in discovery side, always remember everything works on the IP address, right? If the IP address is not there, you cannot discover the devices, right? And now, once you have the IP address, the connectivity and the credentials, that is something other part. But the first point is IP address, right? And I hope everyone understand what is IP address. I don't want to go detail on that one, right? Yes, no,
Yes, Ravi.
maybe.
Yes, Ravi. Yes.
Okay, so you got an IP address of a vCenter, right? Or we called VMware, or we called Hyper-V, or we called Nutanix. So you got an IP address of the vCenter, VMware, Hyper-V, or Nutanix. So different namings, end of the day, use is the simple, right? So you got this one. Once you put that particular IP address for discovery, and when you have the credentials or when you have the access available, the vCenter is going to discover the connected ESX servers, right? So first will be ESX servers. Then it is this possible on that one vCenters, 5 ESX servers will be running or 10 ESX servers will be running, right? So example here, the 2 ESX servers is running this, okay? Or three, let me put three. Okay, so 3 ESX servers is running on that vCenter. So that's discovering these particular ESX server first. And top of it, that can be possible on one ESX servers. There are multiple, there are multiple virtual machines running on it on one or each ESX server. So example, on this ESX servers, the 5 virtual machines is running. I'm just, or here also, or here also, right? So everywhere the 5 virtual machines are running. This is the top layer, right? Apart from that, when you're discovering a virtual machine, the couple of other components is going to be discovered. Example, virtual network, virtual data store, or storage, we can say, or there are a couple of other components, right? But what I feel, customer is not looking for those informations, right? Now you have discovered these things basically, and these particular things going to be these particular ESX servers things going to be the EXX server table, and that's going to be the virtual machine table specifically, right? And the one more thing here, if it is going to be discovered by vCenter, or it is discovered by Hyper-V, or it is discovered by Nutanix, the virtual machines all is going to in a single table which we called CMDB CI underscore virtual machine instances. Okay. But when you are discovering the virtual machine instances, only the few attribute or the small component is going to be discovered. That the few component is like RAM, hard disk, or this is this particular virtual machine is on or off, or connecting to which ESX servers, which vCenters, and that's create a complete hierarchy basically, right? Now, because you discovered the virtual machines, it's not discovering the complete host or not the complete OS. Means on these 5 virtual machines might be Windows is running, right? On top of it, Apache, Tomcat, Oracle database, SQL database, couple of other things running. That's not discovered by vCenter discovery or the virtual machine instance discovery. For that, you have to do the actual host discovery, which I'm going to be cover on the next topics, right? The thing. So it's that particular discovery for VMware and Hyper-V is little easy, right? But when I come to the Nutanix, right? So here it's using the credentials, policies, and other things, right? But in the Nutanix sides, that is the credential-less discovery. Basically, you have to create, inside the discovery schedule, some configurations you have to put it, couple of things required, which I'm going to cover in the next sessions, basically. But that's little different. That's little different apart from the vCenter and the Hyper-V discovery. So there you are able to get it those particular informations, right? And I also try to mention the same thing here. If you see, the VMware or vSphere is virtualization platform which transform data centers into aggregated computing infrastructures that include CPU, storage, and networking resources, right? vSphere manages these infrastructure as a unified operating environments and provide you the tools to administrate the data centers that participate in the environment, right? So as I mentioned, tools, his vMotion is there. You can segregate based on the test environment. You can segregate for the production environment, whatever you want to, right? So different things will be there. And the two core component of a vSphere or the VMware or the vCenter is ESX servers and the vCenter servers, right? ESXi is the virtualization platform where you create and run the virtual machines and the virtual appliances. And vCenter is the service through which you manage multiple hosts connected to a network and the pool host resources. As I mentioned, simple example, you are purchasing a hardware, you install applications, now you call vCenter. Once you install an application and top of it ESX servers is created, on top of it virtual machine will be created, and ESX servers is just to manage the virtual machines, and virtual machine is actual servers where you are going to install that application, host or database, whatever you want to use it, and then you're going to be perform your activities what you want to do, right? So that's the simple example of the VMware and vCenter or Hyper-V or Nutanix, right? Now, is there any questions in it?
So I have a question. So discovering devices and discovering VMware is a whole like discovering virtual machines are a whole different process, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Now, sorry. Sorry, something happened in my throat.
So by discovering VMware, automatically it will be discover ESX servers and virtual machines also, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It will discover the virtual machines and the ESX servers automatically once you put the vCenter IP. Nowadays, what happens if sometimes organization says I'm not using the vCenter servers, I have standalone ESX servers, standalone, right? So that also possible nowadays to discover it, right? If you have the ESX server IP, you can put it, and then once ESX server is discovered, the same way virtual machines and other virtual component will be discovered automatically, right? So there are, to discovering, as you know, the patterns, prop, which is working in the backend, but we will, discuss slowly. The main thing is here to give you understanding the solutions which is provided by organizations or OEMs to create virtualization things in their organizations and how we can discover it. Okay, so if you see here in the right side example in the simple way, right, as I just mentioned, there is a vSphere client, that vCenter server is there. They will provide you an IP, and then it's going to be managed the two ESXi servers. On top of the VMware is there, and inside that the applications and the database and the storage is connected, right? So see, very simple. So once you are discovering, automatically everything is going to be discovered. And now the point come, why we need a vCenter discovery, right? So we need to understand how many virtual machines are activated or running a customer environment, right? How many data centers they have it. Inside the data centers, how many vCenter they have it. And these are the virtual machine instances or virtual machine running, because customer want to know or want to see, like, he can have 1000 virtual machines, but only the 900 or 800 are on status. There are 200 which is on off. If they are on off, that the actually is in use. Might be they are not using, but just put it on off, right? So they can use those particular virtual machines for different applications if they have the visibility on it, right? And you also get an visibility here, 800 or 1000 devices are there. So we need to discover the host discovery at least for 800 or 900 or 1000 devices, apart from the physical server discovery, right? So it will give you visibility as well. That's your inventory, that's your things which you have to be discovered as a host discovery. And the same, the same things will apply for, I can say, on cloud side as well, Azure or AWS as well. But that's completely different, right? These virtualizations things will be provided basically for on-prem data centers or colocation data centers or that, the shared data centers basically. Okay. So I hope it's clear. Any questions on it now?
And we need to know all this theoretically, right? We are never going to see all this stuff in a real project.
No. Definitely, you're not going to do anything on that side, but you should know it. If you know it, you can do your work in the better way. Right? If you understanding the virtualizations things, because what happens now let's take an example. You have not heard Hyper-V. Customer comes to you and you're working on discovery and they say we have a Hyper-V, you have to be discover it. Now you are confused. I've never seen or never heard about the Hyper-V, how I'm going to discover it, what it is, how it's going to be right happening. So that's basic understanding you should required. Hyper-V is a virtualization things, VMware, vCenter, vSphere, again a virtualizations, and Nutanix is one of the thing, is a virtualization again, right? And how that is discovering.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so now let's move to the next slide here. Right, so we are going to talk about the device details in the data centers. Right, so the first device which utilize is server. As I mentioned, server can be a physical server or a virtual server, right? Physical means just like your laptop, you have a laptop on your laptop, instead of installing your Microsoft, Windows 7 or Windows 11, you install the Microsoft Windows 2012, Red Hat 6.5 or 7.5, whatever, or the CentOS or whatever, right? Which the server's configuration or server OS, right? So you can utilize your laptop as a server, right? So the server can be physical and virtual. I just mentioned about the technologies or the OEMs which providing the solutions for that, right? I have just put it an example here. The servers, where is my mouse? Yeah, servers is host applications, database, and the virtual machines, right? Now examples like Dell PowerEdge, HP ProLand, IBM Blade centers are there, right? Common ports which is mostly utilized for the server side. I just specifically mentioning here the SSH port 22 for Linux servers. Like if you want to take a remote any Linux type of device, which is the Linux, there are different type of OS available in the Linux like Red Hat, CentOS, or Ubuntu, Unix, right? So there are a lot, right? So to take the remote or access of any Linux device, you required a port 22. The same way for Windows servers, Windows device, you required a port 3389. If you want to do any connections to application servers, again, don't be confused the terminology with application servers or database servers. End of the day, that are a physical and a virtual server, or end of the day again, that some OS is running on it. Means might be Windows running or might be Linux running, which is the common used OS. On top of it, we are running an application. On top of it, we are running the database. So sometimes if that particular server, let me give you a simple example here again. You purchase your laptop, right? Now on your laptop, you installed Microsoft Office, sorry, Microsoft Windows Server, right? Now you get it, right? So you installed a server. Now you calling it's a server, right? But once you install some application top of it, instead of calling a Windows server, you are now calling an application server, right? So that's only the difference. The same way, if you install the database, now you are calling it's a database server because we are using specifically for database purpose, right? So don't be confused with that terminology. That some OS will be there and top of it some applications and the database other things will be there, right? To connect with the application servers, we required port 80 and 443. In the database side, these are the some specific ports because these are the commonly used database in an organization. So for MySQL, you are going to use the 3306. For MS SQL, you are going to use 1433, or the Postgres, you are going to use 5432. Okay. Now one question. I hope you guys heard about the RaptorDB, right? Which is coming or introduced by the ServiceNow recently.
What is it you said, JJ?
RaptorDB, Raptor database.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
No.
No one is heard about that?
I just heard that instead of MySQL, they are going to use the Raptor. Are they already started using the Raptor?
Right.
Yeah,
No.
just heard about.
Okay. So have you heard about do you know what DB or what database earlier used by the ServiceNow? What they called?
Yes, MariaDB.
MySQL?
Sorry?
Maria database.
MySQL?
Okay, but what they called the database? They have given some name to it. MariaDB, right? So earlier they are using the MariaDB and that's using the MySQL, right? Back in the backend, MySQL database is there. Now, because they heard lots of noise from customers, the performance is slow, the data is sometimes you see na running transactions slow if you're doing something on the instance, right? So now they introduce a new DB which we called RaptorDB, and in that side there are two things will be there: RaptorDB Enterprise, I think, and RaptorDB Pro. And it just like iPhone 15 and iPhone 15 Pro, right? So if you are migrating from MariaDB to RaptorDB, you're automatically the performance improvement will be 10x, right? Now, why I just picked that particular question here, in the RaptorDB, the backend database is the PostgreSQL. Okay, because we are talking about database. So in the RaptorDB, they are using the PostgreSQL and the RaptorDB built by ServiceNow. That's not purchased or that's not utilized from somewhere else. That's built by ServiceNow in their own house to help to customers. And as some Atish mentioned, slowly and gradually, customers are moving from MariaDB to RaptorDB, but that particular, the queue is very long, right? We have already started discussions and we have already, doing those things. There are a couple of customers it's already moved it, and couple of customers going to be do that, right? But it will take, I think, 3-4 years still to migrate every customers to the RaptorDB. And after that, they are going to be discontinued with the MariaDB. And it just in backend infrastructure change. Nothing is going to change on the application and the front view side, right? To improve the performance, to improve the to make the life of easy life of the platform owners and the admins and other things, right? So they are doing those particular things. And as I mentioned, ServiceNow again an application, right? Which is working on the web base, which is working on the mobile, whatever, right? But end of the day, the database is there in the backend, the virtual servers are there in the backend, that storage is also in the backend, network is also in there in the backend, right? But ServiceNow not giving you access to their devices, so you cannot discover it. Getting my point? Okay, now let's talk about the server credentials, right? On the server credentials side, mainly again using the username and the password or the private key for Linux type of devices. When I called SSH, it is a Linux type of devices and multiple flavors are there, right? Domain credentials we required for Windows servers, for RDP, and application specific credentials required for applications, database, whatever running on top of that particular device, right? So these applications which I just mentioned, 80 or 443, these are the web-based applications. There are a lot of applications available in the market like JBoss, Tomcat, Apache, Redis, whatever, right? So they have different specific ports. If sometimes we need to discover and customer is not provided access directly to us to the host credentials, we require the specific credentials which we called applicative credentials or application specific credentials to discover those devices. Okay, and that's available as a server side in the data centers, right? Now the next thing is the storage. Storage is something again which is going to be manage my storage, and for backups, archives, and the live data, right? There are a couple of storage available as I mentioned already. NetApp is there, Dell EMC is there, HP Nimble is there, and there are lots, right? The common port for the storage is for SCSI is 3260, NFS is 2049, SMB and CFS is port 445. But that's not required because these are the common port where the storage team worked, right? That's not required for us, these three ports, right? But the management interface port, the port 443, 5989, and the 5988 is required for the discovery, for the storage discovery, right? And as I mentioned, for this, I think couple of first day or second day I mentioned the storage admin credentials is not provided by the customers to anyone. But here is a small glitch to discover the storage, the fully discover of the storage in the customer environment. We require the admin username and password, which never is going to be provided by the customer, right? But there are different alternates or alternative way to discover the storage, right? So that's why I mentioned that credentials required admin username and password to discover the management console, or we require the service account credentials for automatic task, right? But apart from that, what we can do, I'm just forgetting that one term, but basically, we can create a SIM server, right? Yeah, I got it. So we can install or we can create a SIM server. SIM server is common interface model server, which we can install on top of it. Like, once we install it, SIM server or the customer basically going to help out to do that. Once they install it SIM server, they can connect all the storage to that SIM server and they will provide you a single IP to us, right? It's just like the virtual machines or the vCenter, right? So once we discover the SIM server IP, automatically all the storage which is connecting to that particular SIM server is discovered in ServiceNow. And in that case, we don't require the admin credentials, right? So there are one more alternate way, there are other alternate ways as well, and based on the storage as well, some other things will be possible to do that, right? We'll discuss in detail later, but yeah, on the networking side, if you see here, the networking purpose is just to help out the routing, switching, traffic management, firewall, security, traffic load balancings, to distribute the incoming traffic among the servers to ensure reliability, right? So there are different type of network devices, right? So routers there, switch are there, firewalls are there, load balancers are there. That are the commonly used, right? Examples I already mentioned: Cisco Nexus, Juniper MX, Arista switches, Palo Alto, Cisco, ASA, Fortinet, F5 Big IP, Citrix ADC, AWS. So these are the flavors of the network devices, right? The common port which we used here, the port 22 is used for the configuration, right? So we can also discover that network devices using the port 22 if customer is able to provide the access to us. But if not, then we have to go with the SNMP credentials or SNMP ports, right? Then HTTP and HTTPS, that port 80 and 443 for web interfaces, because that particular devices which we are going to, or what are used by the organizations, we can access it on the web itself, right? So the port 443 or 80 is also there. For discovery specifically, the port 161 is going to utilized, which is UDP port. Whatever I mentioned before that, the ports, that are the TCP ports, transmission control protocol port, right? And UDP port is 162 and 161, right? For discovery, we are going to utilize 161. If I need an event, if a monitoring is required, then if I need to connect with the SNMP protocol to discover that device, to get the event in service now, I'm going with the port 162 UDP or 1162 UDP as well, right? And the credential side, we have console or SSH credentials are there. But when we are doing discovery, we are mostly using the SNMP community strings that can be public for read-onlys, or SNMP V2, we can say, or SNMP V3 credentials are there, right? So these are the basic, components which is available in a data centers. Apart from that, I'm not saying this is not, but apart from that, lots of other components are there, right? Rack is there. Sorry, rack is there, blade servers is there, AC is there, electricity is there. There are a lot of things, right? But infrastructure sites, these are the basic components which is available in a data centers, and that's how we are connecting or accessing the data devices in ServiceNow to do that, right? Any questions on that particular slide?
Ajay, can you please throw some light on what exactly the context of ports here? I can understand like via the ports we are going to connect to those devices, but still I do not get exactly like this port 22 means it's Linux or 3389. So in routers we have that ports, or I'm not exactly able to map these or find the exact use case of how to relate these. Like when you mentioned about TCP or UDP.
Okay, now let me give an example. Okay, now okay, so I'm just thinking a very common example. Just give me one moment. Let me see. Let's take it in that way, right? So port 22, 3389, whatever are the ports are available here. That's are the common used port to access a device. Okay, now let's take an example. You are using your Windows machine, right? I need to take a remote of your Windows machine. If I have the credentials, how can I take it? I need the port 3389 will be open from my device to your device to make a connection, right? It just to, transform the data from one device to another device. The connectivity, basically, in simple words, if I say, right? So for that, the ports is required. On that specific ports, that connections, the transmission of the data will be happening. For Windows device are different, Linux are different, right? And specifically mention here what ports are using for which purpose. Like for Linux servers, port 22, 3389. For Windows server here, as I mentioned, port 22. If I'm doing the network device, if I need to do a configuration of the network device, need to set up something on that particular router or switch, I have to go with the port 22. Means we need to access the device from port 22. If I need to access that same device on web, I need to go with the port 80 or 443. And if we need to do something discovery or monitoring, I have to go with the port 161 and 162. So different ports for different purpose. I
Okay,
hope.
yeah, but in discovery we are going to just maybe these would be used in the discovery, I believe. So in discovery we are going to just discover these devices, these like servers or networking devices or anything. So what is the purpose of what do you mean by when you say access these devices? So just discovering means if they are connected, we just tell them that okay, when port 22, if an SSH device is connected, so we come to a conclusion that okay, there is an Linux networking device that's there connected in there.
Okay.
So, that conclusion we come, or like when we say access.
Now, let me tell you an example, right? So tell me, you are leaving a big society which having 10 or 20 floors, okay? And you
Okay.
have allocated a specific flat number, which is 205, example, okay?
Okay.
I want to meet you, and I reached out to the security gate. Till the time I'm not specifying him, I want to go to 205, that security guy is going to allow me, tell me,
No.
right?
Yeah.
Now, if I know I need to go to 205, I have to specify, sir, I need to go to 205, and that's my friend, right? Once I mentioned to him, he allows me, right? The first thing. Second thing, now let's take an example. Again, I reached on the 204 or 205, right? If I don't have access means credentials, right? If I don't have the credentials, do I able to enter in your flat? Means if I don't have your key, or till the time I'm not, ringing the bell of your flat, do you know anyone is standing out your door? No,
No.
right? The same thing here happen, right? So, basically, that's the port are required to connect to reach that specific type of device, right? So as I mentioned, Windows, if I need to, now let's take an example or correlate an example in that way. Again, a big society, Windows is living in 205, Linux is living in 206, or network or SNMP type of device is living in different 2010. Okay. If I need to reach out, I need to tell the security, sir, I need to go for Windows, and 3389 is the access code for that, right? So that's we required for connections. That's how the connections or transmissions basically happening. I hope you are able to correlate now, right?
Yeah.
And
So when we mean
go ahead.
connection and access, we mean to say that okay, we are going to connect to the application or access the application which is connected on that port.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Right. Because every application which is running now, simple example, on your side, I think, in your task manager, in the Windows I think in Windows system you're using, in the Windows system on the task manager, you can see how many applications are running, right? I think in the task manager itself, you are able to see on which port they are running, right? So if I need to connect a specific application to your device, right, I need that particular information, the port. Or again, another example, in your in your flat 205, there are 10 people is residing, 10 people are living, like your father, mother, sister, brother, everyone. I need to reach a specific person, right? So I need a specific things. I need to call that person only, right? The same way, if I need to reach out inside a Windows server to a specific application or a specific database, I need to reach to that specific point or a specific port. Still confusing?
No, I got it, Ajay. So my understanding is like, so for on port 22, it's for all the Linux servers. Like there will be so many Linux servers on port 22. So based on the our IP and the credentials that we use, we locate, okay, this is the Linux server that needs to be discovered for our organization. Kind of that, right?
Exactly. IP is
Okay.
the unique thing, right? IP
Okay.
is just IP just as a flat number, right? Port 22 is the person inside the flat, right? So there are, like as I mentioned, Linux or Windows or whatever the things people are available inside the flat, but I need to reach the port 22, which is Linux people, a Linux person, right? So that's how that's basically working. And IP is the unique, always unique,
Okay.
right? So, um, that's port which you are able to see here, and these are port somehow related to discovery as well. And there are different other ports required for the discovery. But what I put it here, the device which available in a data centers, and if you want to access those type of devices, want to take a remote of those type of devices, how you can do that? These are the standard ports across the globe. When you're working till the time they have not customized the port at their end, you can take a remote of it. But now one question comes in the mind, guys. Somehow you got to know the Facebook server IP, okay, and that's running on Linux OS. Did you able to take a remote if you know that x.x.x is the Facebook server IP and it's running on the port 22? No, because traffic is traffic should be allowed from your system to the target system. If that is not allowed, first thing. Second thing, the credentials required to access that particular system. If that's not there, you're not able to do that anything. And that's why hackers comes in the picture, if you heard about that, right? So something threat happening, hackers doing something, this, right? They are doing those things only because they find out the loophole and they did it. Okay, so I hope you are able to correlate now.
Yeah,
Or
got
still
it,
you still have
Ajay.
question, I don't still you have any questions or anything? I'm happy to discuss because I love to help you out, or I love to understand your concerns where you are facing the issues.
Yeah, now it's clear, Ajay, for me. Now it's clear.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I would like to understand whether the server is a UDP or TCP, because there will be different ports for different things, right? For the TCP, there will be different ports. For TCP, there will be different ports. So how can I, if I want to run a command in PowerShell to discover a device, so how can I know whether that particular server is a TCP server or UDP server? Based upon, right, I need to take the port number, right?
Right. Right. So, TCP and UDP is nothing. Okay.
Okay.
Basically, in simple words, if I say it's a transmission control protocol, or it's a transmission protocol. Basically, TCP, what TCP did basically, let me tell you an example. Once you try to connect, might be I'm not confused, right? But when let's take an example. I call out to Vasant immediately responded, right? Hi, Ajay. So I got the response. TCP is that. Okay. But UDP is something different. I call to, sorry, my bad. That's why I'm saying I'm confused a little bit. TCP is something I call to Vasant, and Vasant not responded for 5 minutes. So TCP is going to wait for at least 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever the time we have configured for timeout. TCP is going to wait for the response, but not the UDP. Once you connect to the UDP type of devices, they will call to Vasant. If Vasant is not responding immediately, they will come back with the response.
Okay.
Okay, so it's just a terminology, first thing. Second thing, to make a connections. Second thing, there are lot ports in the TCP side or UDP side. But if you ask me on the specific purpose of the discovery, related to the discovery, right? I'm going to be tell you, but there are different ports required in the Windows for the UDP. There are different ports required, which is UDP in the network device side. There are some ports required on the storage side, which is UDP. So we have to be very precisely mentioned to our customer, sir, that's the port is UDP and that's the port is TCP. We require to make a connection.
Okay.
Okay, that's we
Yeah.
have to be very precisely mentioned to that, right? Now, I'm going one moment. Okay, now simple example I just want to tell you here. As I mentioned of the flat example, right? So a flat, or sorry, a society. Society is example data center. Okay,
Okay.
under that you have flats.
Yeah.
Flats means your devices.
Okay.
Okay, devices means devices with unique number, unique IP. Okay, now
Here
under
here devices means there can be servers or network devices, anything, right?
anything, right?
Okay.
Now, that's as I mentioned, under that the flat under that unique device, inside that, now you have to be connect this one, right? The flats up. Let's take an example. Ajay coming to your society and he connect to the security, and this, and once security allows, I will reach out to the flat. Okay, now the same way happens in the IT world as well, right? So let's take an example, the mid server, because mid servers we are going to discuss later, but mid server is the point from where you need to reach out to the device. Okay,
Yeah.
so mid server is there. In between the mid servers, the customer firewall are there, which we
Okay.
call security, right? So what we have to do, sir, I need to discover that flat, or I need to discover that IP, and that's a Windows server or that's a Linux device. You have to reach out to customer to enable that security. Now the point come, what customer do, right? So what customer do? Customer will open their checkpoint firewall. I'm just giving an example. Firewall
Yeah.
can be anything. Okay. Customer is going to access the checkpoint firewall. He log in it. Now, how he can log in it? As I mentioned in my slide, where it is, yeah, here. So as I mentioned in my slide, yeah, here, to access to configuration, he will log in using the port 22 for network device. Okay, he log in it. Once he log in it, whatever the IPs I have provided or whatever the flat number I have provided to the customer, he will add those particular things in access ACL, access list basically, right? So how it's going to be do that? Access list 10.9 sorry, 10.9.9.9. He just going to be add, or specifically he's going to be mentioned on port 22. Simple. So what he did, he already did some configuration on the firewall side. Sir, on the port 22, that particular IP is allowed. The port 35, that IP is allowed. Port XYZ, that IP is allowed. Okay, it's just like that. You have, someone is coming to your flat and you already called to security. If anyone come to my flat, if anyone is asking for my flat 205, please allow him.
Yeah.
That is my point. So
Yeah,
that's the
understood now.
basically, right? So we have to we have to provide the information to customer, the enable firewall to reach out to their data center or their network, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
So
Thank you.
that's the basic simple example I can provide you guys.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone else?
So Ajay, for network devices, we use 161 only, right? But we discussed port 22 also for network devices. Right.
See, I specifically mentioned, guys, don't be confused. See, port 22 is required for configuration. Okay, we can also, every time alternatives are there for everything. If you want to discover your network device, you can discover with the port 22 as well. But that's not the best practice. The practice to discover a network device using the port 161 UDP and with the SNMP credentials V2 and V3, whatever it is. Okay.
Okay.
That's
And
for, we are not discussing about discovery now. We are only discussing about the data centers, right? In the data centers, what type of device? I'm not discussing about discovery prereq here, but the points comes, I'm just trying to mention that things to you guys. Key, that's particular thing comes in the discovery, that's port we are using. But here the basically discussion is around the data centers. In data centers, we have those type of devices and those type of ports are available to access it, because somehow couple of information which is mentioned here, it's directly correlated to the discovery as well. Okay.
okay.
Any other questions? Because I think we already on 8. If any questions, I think I can take it. Not going to be the next topic now.
Any difference between the port 135 and 3389 Windows Server?
3389. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Port 135 is WMI port, Windows Management Instrumentation port. And 3389 is the RDP port, Remote Desktop Protocol, right? Windows 135 is going to utilize when we are doing discovery to connect the Windows instrumentations which is installed in the Windows server. But port 13389 is to take the remote of the device. Remote means, are you understanding what does that mean, remote? Remote means, I want to access, I want to log in your device from my home. Like you are taking, if I'm not wrong, are you guys using anyone Citrix or anything to work on the customer environment? You are taking, connecting through the Citrix, and then you're going to be connected with the ServiceNow instances or mid servers or whatever. Anyone using Citrix? No. So basically, it's just to, connect or access or to, see what configurations are available on the device that particular port 3389 is required. That's why I mentioned RDP port, Remote Desktop Protocol port. I hope it's clear.
Yes, Ajay. Yes, fine.
Okay. Any other questions? I think we are on the time now.
Ajay, last question. So I would like to know, so these device details in data centers, it will be helpful in our discovery going forward, right? Or how to use
Definitely.
the port numbers.
So, as
Is
I
it correct?
mentioned, no, let me finish. So
Yeah.
basically, couple of ports, couple of ports, same type means couple of ports is required in the discovery, but not all the ports, right? Discovery have a specific prereq for the discovery, right? Specific ports are there. These are, which I mentioned here, it's related to data centers. Don't confuse now. It's only related to a data center, how in a data center, if I am working as an infrastructure engineer, how I can access the network device, how can I access the Windows device or the Linux device. That's the only thing. Okay.
Got it,
Discovery
Ajay. Yeah,
project
got
will
it.
be
Yeah.
discussed in the next class. Don't confuse now.
Yeah, got it.
Discovery project we
Yeah.
will discuss. Okay.
Yeah.
Any last question before wrapping up today? If not, I think we are good. Atish, yesterday you were logged in on the Teams almost 1.5 hours after our training. Request you guys to everyone, please drop immediately once the training is closed. So recording will be stopped immediately and that will be useful for others. Otherwise, recording will be starting and I see recording is not available. Then I logged in again and I removed you from the meeting and then connection drop. So that's happened basically. And yesterday, if you see that recording will be around 2 hours and 15 minutes something. Okay, so
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will.
Sure, Atish. Yeah, sounds good. I think then we are good, guys. And if you have any other questions, if just one only request, if you want to research, just research on the TCP and UDP protocol things. It will very helpful to understand, how the things will work basically, right? So as I mentioned yesterday, I given the data centers things. Now I'm giving you the TCP and UDP differences, so you can correlate, you can understand how that's working. Okay. And we'll meet you tomorrow at the same time, guys. Thank you so much. Till the time, have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ajay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ajay. Bye bye.